Oh, I didn't see you there. Welcome. I've decided that it's going to be Composer Week on Wilkowske or Wonkowski this week, and in keeping with that theme, I wanted to share an original composition with you. Now, I don't really write original music, so I'm a little nervous about this, but one of my oldest friends, Ben Johnson, is a brilliant songwriter. He's written 100 songs. He's great, and he and I collaborated on this. It is a setting of Sonnet 148, music by Ben Johnson and me, and text by, Shakespeare. Give it a listen.
What eyes hath love put in my hair, which have no correspondence with true sight? Or if they have, where is my judgment fled, that censures falsely what they see art? If that be fair, whereon my false eyes dote, what means the word to say it is not so? If it be not, then love doth denote. Love's eye is not so true as all so true. How can it, oh how can love's eye be true? That is so vexed with watching and no marvel then, though I mistake my view. The sun itself sees not till heaven clears. O cunning love, with tears thou keep'st me blind, lest eyes well seen my foul faults should find.
Thanks, Ben, for taking the lead on that special collaboration, and thank you guys for indulging me a little bit and letting me play an original piece for you. Welcome to episode 7 of Wilkowske or Wonkowski. Can you believe it? 7 episodes? Boy, we've gone on a journey together, haven't we, Long Beach? Well, like I said, it's Composer Week here on Wilkowske or Wonkowski, and I just realized that Wilkowske or Wonkowski spells wow when you put the letters together. So this week on WOW, we're highlighting composers, living composers. Wow. New opera has been a focus and a passion of mine ever since I started singing. In fact, one of the very first things I ever did in my freshman year of undergrad was this really weird Swedish opera that was written by a brilliant composer named Bjorn Hallman, and he also wrote the libretto, and he brought the Royal Swedish Opera with him to my undergrad, and they put on this North American premiere of this opera called Solitaire. And it was wild and intense, but it sort of gave me a taste of what singing new music is like and having the composer in the room with you. And that work continued when I was a resident artist at Minnesota Opera. One of the first things I did there was the North American premiere of a piece called Transatlantic by George Antile. And granted, he had long since passed away, but just getting a chance to do a piece of music that no one had really done before was so exciting, and it really sort of shaped my entire grad school experience, and really has shaped my career ever since, to be honest with you. And I feel like very fortunate to be singing in a time where we're getting new operas every single year. And I've been super fortunate to be able to work with the composer librettist teams of Ricky Ian Gordon and Michael Corey, Kevin Putz and Mark Campbell, Douglas Cuomo and John Shanley. I got to do a premiere at Long Beach Opera by Stuart Copeland and Jonathan Moore, The Invention of Morel. And getting a chance to work with Stuart was amazing. There's nothing like it. And it's one of the favorite things I get to do as a singer. And out of all these collaborations, there hasn't been one more meaningful to me than the one with John Glover and Kelley Rourke. And we three met when I was an apprentice artist at Glimmerglass Opera in 2005. John was a dramaturgy intern, I believe, and Kelley was the super titles supervisor. I'm sure I got that wrong. But John and I got to be friends that summer, and the next summer I came back and I sang a set of John's songs on a recital that I did. And after the recital and over many, many silly nights of drinks at the Rose and Kettle, we started having conversations that turned into what would be Guns N' Roses Cavalier. And I've talked about my collaborations with Guns N' Roses Cavalier many, many, many times on the show. We don't need to talk about that. I want to focus on other projects that I've done with John and Kelley. And so in about 2010, we were searching for something to do, and John happened upon this episode of Radiolab that was about the chimpanzee Lucy, who was being raised in a human household and being raised as a human daughter. And he called me up and he said, I think this is our project, man. We're going to make an opera about Lucy. And I was like, great. And he said, Kelley's on board. I think it's going to be great. And I have to say that working on Lucy with John and Kelley was the first time I ever really truly felt like a collaborator, and not just a singer who gets hired to execute the already written part. I felt like a true collaborator. They made me feel that way. And over the course of the 4 years it took to write and produce Lucy, John and Kelley became very dear friends of mine, which I will forever be grateful to Lucy for that opportunity to be friends with those guys. So Lucy was a chimpanzee sent to live in the home of psychotherapist Maurice Temerlin, who was attempting to study the effects of raising her as a human child, treating her exactly the same as he would his human son. And she lived in the Temerlin home for over a decade, and the opera sort of chronicles her growth and integration into the family, from her first steps to drinking gin and tonics with her human dad, and to being rebellious and tearing up the house when she got older. I'm going to sing a song from Lucy called Tools. And in this song, Maurice, the dad, the very proud dad, is talking about all the tools that he has observed his daughter Lucy using. And I just want to say a little bit about my band here. Hold on. Okay. There they are. So this opera was written for a chamber. It's a one-act opera. It was written for a chamber ensemble including piano, toy piano, bass clarinet, violin, and cello. And on my track here, you will see that it features composer John Glover at the toy piano. You can't see her, but it's Kelley Rourke, librettist, playing the big piano. And then I'm filling in on the violin, cello, and bass clarinet parts on the guitar and the melodica. And I've now talked about this piece way longer than it is because it only lasts about a minute and a half. But also Philip Glass, I think you can see his face on Kelley's piano. He's probably judging the quality of the piano part that John wrote. But anyway, this is Tools by John and Kelley. I'm going to get my starting note. Okay.
We have seen Lucy use the following tools: wrench, pencil, dish,
mirror, cigarette lighter, brush, light switch, tricycle knife, matches, ladder, vacuum, ashtray, rake, waste basket, cup, shears, key, Kleenex, fork, book, hose, comb, pliers, screwdriver, toothpick, spoon. I should say also that Lucy, the opera, was workshopped here in St. Paul at the Nautilus Music Theater and also at American Opera Projects in New York City. It premiered to great acclaim in Milwaukee Opera Theater in 2014 and also was subsequently produced at Urban Arias in 2017. Milwaukee Opera Theater is also the people who first premiered Guns N' Roses and Cavalier. The next piece that I want to do by John and Kelley comes from a one-act immersive opera experience called Stay that was commissioned by Onsite Opera. It was originally scheduled to open this fall, but the dates have been pushed back, postponed like everywhere else. But I was a part of the workshop last fall, and we did a workshop and several preview performances, and it was an incredible experience. On-site opera is known for doing immersive opera experiences, and this is no different. The entire show takes place in a house that was renowned for being a location of a pop-up supper club in the past. And it's been abandoned, but some passers-by check it out, and they see that it is occupied by a man named Gil and his entire family. And over the course of the evening, they learn about the mysterious origins of the supper club and the rumors surrounding the family, and especially Mr. Gill. Now, this whole opera is a cappella, with a few ambient sounds here and there providing accompaniment along the way. But the selection I'm going to do right now is one of the very few times there's an actual instrument playing. And it's a murder ballad sung by Mr. Gill. And he's spilling some of the secrets of the house. And I don't know if this murder ballad has a title, but I call it New Moon Night from Stay. New moon night as black as oil, birds have all drifted off to sleep. Young girl digs in the fresh-tilled soil, bury secrets deep. Every evening people gather, happy, loud, and bright. Silver cladders, grown-ups chatter deep into the night, chattering and laughing deep into the night. In the refuge of the kitchen, see her stir the broth, see her serve the steaming portions, silent as a moth. Now the room falls silent, silent as a moth. New moon night as black as oil. Birds have all drifted off to sleep. Young girl digs in the fresh-tilled soil, buries secrets deep. No one comes to supper now. The house is cool and still. No one comes to supper now, and no one ever will. Everything's resolved according to her will. New moon night as black as oil. Birds have all drifted off to sleep. Young girl digs in the fresh-tilled soil, buries secrets deep. She toils in the silent yard while the family sleeps. She digs and digs in the fresh-tilled soil, buries secrets deep. From Stay, The Murder Ballad by Mr. Gill, New Moon Night. Thank you, John and Kelley, for writing that, and thank you for, in an a cappella opera, letting me actually accompany myself on the guitar. It's so much easier. All right, now, I've got a couple more I want to play for you, and these next two are from a work in progress that's based on the novel Eat the Document by author Dana Spiotta. Both Milwaukee Opera Theater and American Opera Projects have recently hosted workshop performances of excerpts of Eat the Document. And the story is about a fugitive radical from the 70s who's been living in hiding for 25 years. It's a story about activism, sacrifice, identity, and the cost of living a secret. Shifting between the protests of the 70s and the consequences of those choices in the 90s. So it's sort of a juxtaposition of those two time periods. In this song, we get to meet Nash. And Nash is the owner of an independent bookstore. He's sort of a passive leader of the 1990s counterculture. And he states his philosophy as anti-ology. Sort of not really being for anything, but being against most things. In this first song, we just hear him kind of introduce himself a little bit. This song is called Unyielding, from Eat the Document by John and Kelley. I have a no-frills existence, a modest life. I never eat out, I buy thrift store clothes. No real estate, no health insurance, no bank account. I use money orders and cash. What's left, I stash. I wouldn't mind being one of those guys who spend 20 years building some massive landwork in the desert, a sculptural dream of the future and God. Of the future and God. One of those guys destined to die. Die in a tractor, moving the never-ending piles of earth. Unfinished but still one of those guys. Until his last breath. Implacable, relentless, and alone, except perhaps for the young acolyte wife, desert tan, a woman with braids and devotion, a never-ceasing and only ambition being to help you realize your dream, your lifelong project, your monument, your statement, your unyielding testament to, well, unyielding. I'm no priest, I just slightly exist. I'm no priest, I just slightly exist. Lots of people in the world live like that. They're just more ashamed and less deliberate about it. This last song that I want to sing for you is also from Eat the Document. It's also sung by the character Nash. And this is one of the teenagers in the 1990s hanging out in his bookstore, mistakenly asks him if he would like a Coke. And Nash takes great offense at that, and you'll see why. I gotta get my band back. Okay. This is the Wilkowske here. All right. This song is called "Nicknames Are for Friends." Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Nicknames are for friends, not corporations. Nicknames are for friends, and the Coca-Cola Company isn't your friend. Do I want a Coke? Why would you say that? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Nicknames are for friends, and the Coca-Cola Company isn't your friend. Do I wanna? I never call those companies by Coke or Pepsi. Not Mickey D's, but McDonald's. Not Mickey D's, but McDonald's. Not IHOP, but the International House of Pancakes. Do I want a Coke? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? Did you just ask if I wanted a Coke? Why would you say that? The companies that make bottled soft drinks are not your friends. The companies that make bottled soft drinks are not your friends. So don't say Coke.
Not Coke, but bottled soft drink. Not Coke, but bottled soft drink. Not Coke, but bottled soft drink. Not Q-tips, but cotton, but bottled swabs. Not Q-tips.
It's more difficult than you might imagine. It's kind of a mental hygiene. Now. All right. Thank you for sticking with me through that. That was Nicknames Are for Friends from the work in progress, Eat the Documents by John and Kelley. And if you stuck with me thus far, you're going to stick with me some more because we're going to hear from John in a couple seconds here. Especially if you want to hear what demented mind comes up with that kind of stuff. He's my guest this afternoon. He's the director of artistic planning at the Kaufman Center in New York City, as well as a composer, a sound designer, a curator, and an arts administrator. He's written music for concert, opera, dance, and theater. He's had commissions at Houston Grand Opera, Onsite Opera, Washington National Opera, amongst many, many others. And most importantly, he's a dear, dear friend of mine. Please enjoy my conversation with John Glover. John Glover! Thanks for being here. Hi.
No, thanks for having me.
Every single week I say, I did this project with John Glover, so it's great to put a face with the name, and I'm especially excited because I've done lots of new operas, and I've done lots of new stuff with you, but I don't really know what your process is, and I'm hoping you can sort of shine a light on what's going on in that demented brain of yours or any composers.
Yeah, I don't know if I know what my process is either, but I think specifically with the work that you and I have done together, or when I do vocal work, it all starts with the text. So my musical process starts with, if I'm setting text, I start by reading the text over and over and over again. Usually I'll print out like 15 or 20 copies of the text, and I'll just sit there with it and read it over and over again and mark it up. And I'm looking at it from a place of like meaning, like what are the core, and like what's the heart of this text. And then part of it is then going through and figuring that out from a rhythmic standpoint. And so I have this weird non-consistent system of circling words and putting squares around parts of words and drawing lines between words and breaking things up to feel rhythm. And I'll kind of exhaust one page of the text that way with all these markings, and then I'll throw it away. And then I'll look at the text again with a blank piece of paper, and I'll do it again. And then I throw it away. And then I start again, and I throw it away. And I'll do that for like sometimes a week, you know. When it's song or opera, I probably spend the majority of my time and energy on the words. In that process, music comes from the back somewhere, and then the notes part comes pretty fast from doing all that homework. You know, that's with vocal music, but like the same applies to like all, I think, instrumental work of mine or sound design work or any of the stuff I've done when there isn't text. There's still this period of time that is about figuring out like, what is the heart of this piece? Like, what's the thing that this piece is trying to do or get at? And you dig into that and you spend a lot of dedicated time with that. And then the notes, I mean, yes, there's all kinds of technique and there's all that craft, of course, but like, it's funny, like the notes tend to be like the last part of this process for me.
So I want to go back to, you mentioned the importance of the text. And I've heard you say that you can't have a good opera without a good libretto. Yes.
I think in my experience seeing new and old opera, I feel like I've had a positive theatrical experience at an opera where the libretto was good and the music I didn't like. And I've had positive theatrical experiences at operas where the libretto is strong, and I feel like I'm very moved by the music, and the music works really well. But I never had a positive theatrical experience at an opera where the libretto was weak or had holes and issues, but the music was really compelling. And what I take away from that is that without that dramaturgical structure and a really solid libretto holding the piece together, there's nothing that I as a composer could do to make it a good show, which means that I'm largely dependent on having an excellent libretto to work with. The idea that the composer's name is always put on top is ridiculous to me. The idea that you would not list the two equally has never made sense. I still feel like there's an unequal weight given to the role of the composer in creating opera. I don't think that's how the work actually gets done.
I want to go back a little bit to you spend time living with what it is you're saying with this piece, and then once you lived with it, then the music stuff sort of comes out naturally. But for those of us who do not write music, what is that like? Like, what is the germ that starts that? Is it? Do you think in terms of harmony, melody, texture? Is it like what? How do you write music, John?
I don't know. I think the bigger part of it, which is like a long-term steady practice, is you're always listening, just constantly to either other work or your own work, or even more importantly, I think just kind of like the world, noticing what you gravitate towards or what and how those different sounds are engaging your mind and your heart in different ways. And I think you just actively listen all the time, and you try to take notice of what your mind keeps coming back to, or what you continually are interested in hearing, whether it's a rhythm or a texture or a beautiful C7 chord that comes out of a wind chime on your neighbor's porch. I think that's like practicing scales or doing vocal warm-ups for a composer. That's that, and you have to be constantly engaged in that. It seems like the first thing I have to get my head around is like what the sound of the piece is, what the kind of soul of it is. It lives somewhere between harmony and rhythm. Sometimes it's harmonic gestures first, sometimes it's a rhythmic impulse first. It's usually not a catchy melodic riff first, although sometimes it is. But I guess the vague and specific answer to your question is there's just a sonic core to each piece, and you spend time kind of trying to find that. And I used to think I was crazy for thinking like that, and then a collaborator pointed out to me at one point that Verdi actually talked about that each opera that he wrote he had to first find the tinta, or like the color of that opera, and until he found the color of it, he couldn't write it.
Turns out you're just like Verdi, John.
Yeah, right.
So I ask this to everyone because I am a singer. So what would you say is uniquely challenging or uniquely rewarding about working with singers?
What's uniquely challenging about working with singers? I'll start there. We'll get that out of the way.
Yeah.
I find it.
It's going to take a while.
Right. The next 20 minutes we'll talk about this. For some reason, and this is a generalization, but for some reason, a lot of singers will give me false information about what they can and can't do. And I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But I think a lot of singers, for whatever reason, will say like, oh, but I can't, can't go to this part of my voice unless you approach it this way. And it's this weird thing where sometimes I'll like really pay attention to those things, and I'll be like, okay, got it. And I'll do that. And then I'll hand them like a stretch of the score, and they'll be like, this is not singable. I can't do this. And I'm like, well, I approached it exactly the way you said you wanted me to get to this note and whatever. And then they're like, well, but could we do this instead? And in my mind, I think, that's exactly what you told me you would never be able to do and would be impossible. Interesting. What is so rewarding about working with singers and unique and exciting about it is that singers are tackling story, timbre, color, character, basic musicianship issues of pulse and tempo and timing, dramatic impulse and physical energy and stamina. Like they're actually tracking and navigating all of them all at the same time from their first rehearsal. That's what it seems like to me. And so, whereas in the abstract, it's easy to say like, oh, well, if you want me to go up to this high E, you can't just not prepare me for it. You have to prepare me in this way or with this approach. And you're like, okay. But then when they're suddenly looking at it in the context of whatever the drama is, suddenly all the rules change. Like, oh, actually, it's easier for me to just get there. It seems like a challenge unique to singers, but the reason for it is one of the reasons that I like working with singers so much. I love that we can grab at all these different elements of storytelling and sound and energy at the same time.
Is there any project that you're working on that you want to talk about?
I guess one is called The Collector of Ocean Beach, and it is turning into an oral long-form podcast work by myself and Aaron Bregman, who's a playwright and librettist. And there's one actress and one pianist, and we're building this sort of long-form, sonically driven podcast work. We're still not sure exactly what form it's going to take. We've been workshopping it for a little while, and that'll start coming out, I think, in the fall.
Oh, cool.
We're building it over the summer. A recent thing that I did was a very short collaboration with an immersive theater maker, Kelly Bartnik, which was called In My Room, which was when both of us were experiencing quarantine in Brooklyn in our separate apartments, hearing sirens every day, hearing the 7 o'clock clap every night. I've done sound design for immersive theater works for her for a number of years, and one day she just sent me this video draft of a performance she made in her bedroom, and asked if I wanted to make sound for it, and I just did, and it was actually the first sound that I made since we went into this moment that we're still in, because for a while I didn't really feel like making any sound.
Right.
So that was a fun project.
This is so great. I just want to keep talking all day long, but I think I'm going to move on to the Fauci 5. It's a very important part of the show. The world wants to know. Do you have a favorite opera, or maybe an opera you think is underrated?
I think my favorite probably is still Fanciulla del West, Puccini, because, and it's for a cheap reason, it's sentimental in a way. I mean, first of all, the music is amazing, and it's the first professional musical experience I ever had, was singing in the chorus for that show at Glimmerglass. So it's like there's no way for me to not fall in love with that music every time I hear it.
Do you have a maybe a book or a resource about opera or music that you could recommend?
One of my favorite books about music is called Where the Heart Beats, which is a book about John Cage and about his life and his work, but it's written from the perspective of a Buddhist Zen practitioner. It's a book about an important and deeply inspiring musician who has changed a lot of how we think about music, but it's not written by a musicologist. I love that book because it looks at his work as an artist through this philosophy that was hugely important to him.
Any book that you've read recently that you can recommend?
I'm in the middle of Fugitive Days right now, which is a memoir by Bill Ayers, who is a member of the Weather Underground. He's a phenomenal writer, and writing about his experiences, and specifically the way he talks about memory, is really interesting.
What are you doing to stay sane right now, or to stay creative, since we're all canceled? I'm
running more, which is good. That's helpful.
Yeah.
On the creative side, I'm taking pseudo piano lessons from my friend Adam. Every week he sends me a piece and I record it. So it's been helpful to have that as a kind of a practice and as a dialogue with somebody that I like a lot.
So the most important question here, what are you watching on Netflix right now?
The reality dating show Love is Blind. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I stumbled on it like right after we went into quarantine. The concept is that 10 men and 10 women go into this place and they're separated, and each day they have dates with each other, but they're in these pods and they're isolated from each other and they can't see each other. They can only hear each other, and they have to decide in like a week and a half whether they're going to propose to someone or not. And then if they do propose and the other one accepts, then they get to see each other, and then they get to go on a honeymoon for a week. And they have to get married by the end of the show. So basically, they have to like fall in love with each other without seeing each other. It's terrible. Like, this show is terrible.
Sounds amazing.
The concept of like being in isolation and physically separated from someone while you decide whether you'd marry them or not felt very resonant to me. I guess the other one I would say, the last movie I watched, I rewatched it just last week, is Roma, which I love that movie so much.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I can't get enough of that movie. I think I've probably watched it 4 or 5 times by now. Just like the attention to sound and visual. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for everything. Your friendship, your music writing, let me sing all your stuff on this silly show, doing this chat with me today. I appreciate all of it. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Andy. I did wear my Genghis Barbie t-shirt, by the way.
Yes, I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Awesome. I did notice that earlier.
Yeah. Seems thematically appropriate.
Totally. I should have worn mine. Anyway, have a great day, and have a great summer of writing music. Thank you, John, for that conversation. We're old friends, as you can probably tell, and we both have the gift for gab, and so I had to edit that conversation way down for time, but there is a link to our full conversation on YouTube in the notes below there if you are so inclined. John has a lot of great insight about collaboration, about sound design, and just art in general. It's really interesting, so check it out. So we have a lot of fun on this show. At least I do. I don't know about you guys, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the seriousness of the moment that we're living in right now. The killing of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and now Rayshard Brooks have sparked protests, riots, and a national conversation about racism and white supremacy. If you're like me, you need to educate yourself about this so that you can be a better citizen and so that you can correct racism when you see it. On last Sunday, Dr. Daryl Acone, Long Beach Opera's Director of Equity and Engagement, hosted a community conversation about equity and diversity in the arts. It was wonderful. It had inspiring performances. There was a very informative lecture given by Dr. Naomi Andre, who is a professor of women's studies and Afro-American studies at the University of Michigan. And then there was a panel discussion by a group of leading opera singers in the United States, including Karen Slack, Andrew Stenson, Eileen Perez, and Kenneth Overton. And it was an eye-opening discussion. They're talking about things that are happening right this very minute in the opera business. And I strongly encourage you to watch that. It's available right here on LBO's Facebook page. If you click on the videos tab, you can find it. If you care about equity in the arts, and I know that you do, please make some time and listen to it. It'll open your eyes. It's really good. Restaurants are closing every day. I would like to give a shout out. I'm kind of excited about this because they've been closed for the past couple months. But I think that they've reopened. From what I can tell, they've reopened. The Hippea in Long Beach is a wonderful Mediterranean restaurant. They have some of the best falafel I've ever had. My buddy Lee and I would walk over there, and we'd walk past the taqueria, and we'd go over to the Hippea and get this big fat pita full of falafel and French fries, and oh man, it was good. So if you're in Long Beach, check that out and confirm if it's open or not. It looks like it's open. As you can see, I'm getting a little less precise with my drink measurement here. But if you're playing at home, this is for you.
Thank you.
If you're playing at home, that would be, yes, 1.5 ounces of Fitzgerald Gin by Du Nord Spirits, which is a black-owned distillery in Minneapolis. Tonic water, 1 lime wedge. Cheers. Fitzgerald by Du Nord. Check it out. All right. Get over here.
Please.
Unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had to cancel our family trip to Disneyland this summer. To make it up to the kids, though, I thought this was kind of sweet. I promised them that when it gets really, really hot, we're going to get all dressed up in our Disney gear, go in the backyard, and stand in line for about 3 hours. With traditional summer camps closed, we've created a summer camp experience for the kids right here at home. The kids are really, really buying into it. And they're even writing us letters each night telling us how much they hate camp. I messed that up. Sorry, Phil. Let me do that again. Okay, I'm just going to back that up. We'll fix this in post. With traditional summer camps closed, we've created a summer camp experience for the kids right here at home. The kids are really buying into it and are even writing us letters each night telling us how much they hate camp. Doesn't work when you tell it twice. Now don't forget that this Sunday is a big day for us dads. Father's Day. Or as I like to call it in my house, the first of the 12 days of Father's Day.
In your dreams.
Now my kids asked me what I wanted for Father's Day, and after all this time of being quarantined together, I had one simple request. I'd like to go the whole day without hearing the latest Billie Eilish song or the SpongeBob theme song.
Same.
And finally, a friendly reminder that this Saturday is the summer solstice. That means it's the longest day of the year, aside from every day since we've started quarantine.
Amen to that.
That's our show, Long Beach. Thanks for tuning in. As always, you can see a list of the people and the projects in the comments below, as well as a set list of the stuff that I played today. Make sure you tune in to all the artist afternoons at Long Beach Opera. Tomorrow we've got Covey Cabin Productions with soprano Susan Hansen. On Thursday there's Cedric and Ash in the house. And then on Monday, I can't wait for the return of soprano Catalina Cuervo with Latin Heat. We hope you get well soon, Catalina, and look forward to your show on Monday. And next week is our final episode of Wilkowske or Wontkowski. Can you believe it? It's going to be a supersized, star-studded opera spectacular. There's going to be special guest appearances. There might be some singing from my daughter. You're not going to want to miss it. So thank you so much. I want to say thank you to John and Kelley, as always, for the music and the words. I want to thank my good friend Ben Johnson for collaborating on that Shakespeare sonnet with me. I want to thank my cousin Phil Johnson for all the jokes. Can't thank you enough for all those. And to close out the show, I'd like to play a video that was created by immersive theater artist Kelly Bartnik, and the sound design was done by John Glover. They created this during their time in quarantine. It's called In My Room. We'll see you next week. Stay safe, everyone. And for Long Beach Opera, this is Andy Wilkowske.